Hey everyone, and in this part of mastering inventory systems, we're going to be focused on the drag and drop functionality. So we're going to make it so we can drag and drop items from the hotbar to the inventory and vice versa. So yeah, let's get straight into that. So to start with, we're going to first of all head into the widgets folder, and we're just going to open our inventory slot, as we want to be able to obviously drag and drop our inventory slot into our hotbar, and then obviously we want to drag and drop our hotbar slot into our inventory. So we'll begin setting up drag and drop for the inventory first, and then we'll move on to the hotbar. So we're going to head into the graph and we are going to go to functions, and what you can do is you can actually override a bunch of these functions, and these are functions that you can pretty much override. So for example, on drag detected, it will be called when it detects you're dragging something, and on drop will detect when you've dropped something, like you've stopped dragging it pretty much. And yeah, that's what these pretty much do. So we're going to start by overriding on mouse button down. As when we actually drag something, we're going to obviously put our mouse button down on it and then start dragging it. And this function is pretty simple. All we're going to do is come off the mouse event and just do a detect drag if pressed. So if mouse button down, we're going to detect the drag, and the key that we're going to press is just our left mouse button. So if we do that, and you want to just put the return value in like that as well. So if we do that, now it will start a drag if we click on the left mouse button. Then another simple function that we can override is on drag detected, that's here. And essentially what we're going to do here is we're just going to create a drag and drop operation. Create drag and drop operation. And essentially what this does, it just enables it so you can drag and drop whatever you want pretty much. And the payload is just going to be self, because that's what we're going to drag. And the visual obviously is going to be self as well, because that's what will be displayed when you're dragging it. So if you wanted to, you could make the visual the icon if you want, that's up to you. I'm just going to make it self, so it'll just drag the entire widget instead of just dragging the icon. I hope that actually makes sense for you guys, but then we'll just return the operation like that. So now pretty much what we're going to have now is if we head into the game, I'm just going to pick up these 4 items. And now in the inventory, you see that we can actually drag this around. It doesn't do anything right now. We can't drag the hotbar, but we can just drag it around and move it across the screen if we want to. So yeah, it's really simple to set up drag and drop. It's not difficult in the slightest. And yeah, that's pretty much it for drag and drop. But obviously that's not where I'm going to end the video. We're actually going to get some functionality done so we can drag and drop between the hotbar. And yeah, we're going to get that done. So we're just going to head into our hotbar slot now, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're just going to override, and we're going to do on mouse, not motion detected, on mouse on mouse button down even. There we go. That is the correct function. We are going to detect drag if pressed. It is exactly the same as we did. The mouse event will obviously be the pointer event, and we return it like that. And then we'll override on drag detected, and we'll just create the drag and drop functionality again. Create drag and drop operation, plug the return in. The payload will also be self. Perfect. Now when we play, drag and drop will now be working for the hotbar as well. So yeah, that is the basics right now. So now what we obviously want to do is we want to detect if we're dragging the hotbar slot anywhere near the inventory. So if it's near here, then we want to put it into the inventory. So remove it from the hotbar and into the inventory. So in order to do that, what we can do is inside of the inventory, go to the graph. There's actually a function called on drag, on drop. And this, I'll show you now. It will get you the operation and stuff, so you can get the payload, so you can check what you're dropping. And stuff like that. However, that's not going to work for us, as you can see, the inventory is this whole thing. So if we dropped it anywhere here, then it would detect, and that's not what we want to happen. So we're actually going to create a new widget, and this will be called widget, and this will be called inventory drop zone. So this is going to be a zone where we can set up for the inventory to get dropped into. So for this, we can simply just add an image in, and we can make the image's color to be completely opaque. So turn the alpha down to 0. And then what this means is if we go into the inventory, and that was my Discord notification, by the way, so ignore that. I should probably turn them off when I'm recording. I just haven't. So we're just going to add our inventory drop zone in here. Inventory drop zone like this. And what we can do is we can anchor it to the same place as the inventory. So we can just do the size X, I think it was 500 by 650, 600, 650, 600, I can't remember. But then we can do the alignment, which was 1.2 by 0.5, like that. And yeah, that's perfect. It doesn't really matter if we drag it right here, it won't count, but no, we're not going to drag it here, let's be honest. We can just keep it there, it's fine. So now we can actually start by doing the functionality for the inventory drop zone. So we can go to functions and we can do an on drop event here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get the operation and we're just going to grab the payload. Get the payload and we're going to cast to the hotbar slot. Cast to hotbar slot like this. So, and this is because when we get the payload, we're casting to the hotbar slot, so we get a reference to the hotbar slot. And if the payload isn't the hotbar slot, it will just simply fail the cast and we won't do anything. But if it is a hotbar slot, then we can carry on with adding it to the inventory. So we're going to start by getting the s_item details. Item details. Which, if you remember, is just the details of the item. So each hotbar slot has its own item details. So for this in particular hotbar slot, we're going to get which item it is and we can break it. So we can get all the details for that single item that we're dropping onto the inventory drop zone. We can pretty much just add an item to the inventory and just use this item details. And then we can just remove this item details as well, to put it in simple terms. But the first thing we're actually going to do is we're going to do a branch. And we're just going to check if the name is not equal to, or sorry, not double equals to so nothing pretty much. So we can do a make literal text. We're going to check if it's equal to nothing. Because if it's equal to nothing, then it means it's not an item. And if you look, we actually have blank hotbar slots. So if we open the inventory right now, as you can see, you can drag these blank hotbar slots, which we don't want to do. So what this will do is it will prevent us from being able to drag these hotbar slots onto the inventory. So this prevents that completely. However, to actually prevent it from dragging the empty slot entirely, what we can do is on the hotbar slot, inside of the on drag detected, we can first actually just grab the we can grab the item details. So the item details for whichever hotbar slot it is. So we just have that in the variables there. And we can just do the exact same thing. So we can break it, grab the name, not exactly equal to a make literal text, and that'll be nothing again. So we're going to check if it's equal to nothing, or we're going to check if it's not equal to nothing, and if it's not equal to nothing, then we can do it. So when we now play, we're not able to drag these anymore. But if we picked up an item, we can drag the item because the name is actually not empty. So I hope that makes sense. But we're pretty much checking if it's empty or not. So back in the on drop for the inventory drop zone, what we're now going to do is we're just going to cast to the third person character. And that is because our reference for the inventory is in the third person character, if you remember. So our whole inventory is just in the third person character, and we're just going to add this item to that array. So we can get player character like this. We can simply grab the inventory variable like that. And we can just do an add. Then just pass in the S item details like that. Pretty simple, to be honest. So once we do this, what we can now do is we can set the array element of whichever the hotbar slot is. So this hotbar slot here, that's its item details. So if we go here, we can get the hotbar number of it, which is the array element of the slot. So if we grab the hotbar quick, I'll try to explain this as best as I can. So we've grabbed the hotbar slot. So we have obviously array index 0, 1, and 2. And each of these hotbar slots is either array index 0, 1, or 2. So instead of just getting this reference, because if we have duplicate items in the hotbar, then it will just get whatever the first one is. So if we drag in the second one, we'll actually just remove the first one instead, which would get a bit confusing and wouldn't make too much sense. So instead, we're just going to get a direct reference to the hotbar number. So we're going to do a set array element of this hotbar, set array element, because we're not going to completely remove it because we obviously have the 3 slots. there already. So they're just always going to be there, but they're either going to be empty or they're going to be full. So we can now just grab this index. So this hotbar number index, and that is going to tell it. So for example, if this is in the second slot, this is going to be 1, and it will just tell it we're going to grab it from the first index. And then we're going to set the item to nothing because we want to make it back to 0, so no value. After we do that, we're then going to set the array element of the item details here because this hotbar slot no longer has these item details. So we'll set item details to nothing because this array element is going to be empty because we've just removed it from the hotbar. We can then set the texture of the hotbar slot as well. So we can grab the icon like this, and we can set texture to nothing as we've just removed it. And then finally, from the third person character, we can just refresh the inventory. So sorry if I didn't really explain that too well, but this part was pretty self-explanatory. But we're essentially just removing its references from everything it's got reference to because we're obviously moving it from the hotbar to the inventory. So let's actually test this out. I'm not too sure if it will work or not, but we'll have a look. So we're going to drag it to the inventory, and yeah, when we pull it in, it removes it from the hotbar and it can go straight into the inventory. So now simply what we're going to do is we're going to make it so we can go back now. So we can't drag, that's one thing actually. We can no longer drag the items because the inventory drop zone is actually overlaid above here. So it's actually registering the click event instead of the inventory grid registering it. So essentially we don't want it to be on top because then it's not going to get registered pretty much. So to simply fix that, I believe what we can do is go into the inventory. We can then go into the inventory grid and just set the, do we have like priority or something like that? Or maybe the vertical box. Yeah, we'll set the priority of the vertical box, the Z order, for 1. And I believe that means it should be on top now. So we can drag it in and it'll get added. And then, yeah, we can still drag it. But it won't get added to the hotbar because we haven't sorted that out yet. But we can pick something else up. Oh, actually, that. Yeah, okay. That isn't good. So, okay, so the hotbar obviously isn't getting updated. So, yeah, that's not good. But I believe what we could do, maybe, is, so in the third person character, if you want, you can click Control P and then you can search for third person character to open it a bit easier. So in the add to hotbar, where we do this update hotbar, we're just going to copy how we do this, or actually no, don't copy it because that won't work. But as you can see, we get it from the main and then the hotbar and then the update hotbar. So in the inventory drop zone from the third person character, we'll grab the main, this, we'll grab the hotbar, and then we'll do the update hotbar like that and just put it after we update the inventory. So now what we'll see is we'll grab it here, we can close it, and it's now completely gone. So that is perfect. All right, great. So I hope you understood that. I hope I wasn't like rambling on too much. I hope you understood something there. Comment if you didn't. DM me if you didn't. I'll explain it to you there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to drag it from the inventory to the hotbar. So let's do that. So we don't actually need a hotbar drop zone for this one because when we drag it from the inventory, we're going to choose individual slots. And since the slots are already there, we're just going to check if it's on drop, if it's dropped onto one of the slots. So in the hotbar slot, we can just add a new function and we can check if it's dropped. So we'll just check if we've dropped anything onto any of these 3 hotbar slots. And obviously we have the hotbar slot number reference here. So we can easily identify which slot it is and if it has any items in it because we have the item details as well. So we are going to, first of all, grab the payload because that is just the reference. If you're wondering why we grabbed the payload, well, in the inventory slot, so say we're dragging the inventory slot, in the on drag detected, as you can see, the payload is a reference to the inventory slot. So that is why. It's just a reference to the inventory slot or whatever's getting dragged, it's a reference to. So what we can now do here is So I'm just trying to work out whether we do a blueprint interface or we'll just do a cast. I think for this one, we could do a blueprint interface. Yeah, we'll do a blueprint interface. Let's create a new one. So we'll do this in widgets because it's going to be to do with the widgets. So to create a blueprint interface, and we'll call this BPI underscore inventory slot. Didn't mean to do caps. BPI underscore inventory slot like this. Double click to open that, and we'll just make an event called get item details. So in the outputs, we're just going to add the item details as an output. S underscore item details. We're also going to add an index so we can get reference to the index of the inventory item, I believe. If that makes sense. So whichever the index is. And then we'll also create another one called Hotbar. Question mark, and we're just going to check if it's an item in the hotbar, because that's going to be for a bit later on when we do switching. So when you drag onto another weapon, they switch places. That'll be for that. But we're just going to check if it's in the hotbar as well. So then in the inventory slot, what we can do is go to class settings, implemented interfaces, and just grab the BPI underscore inventory slot like that. Now we have this get item details. And what we can do here is just drag the item details and the index. And as this is the inventory slot, it's not going to be a hotbar. But in the hotbar slot, we're also going to add it here because we'll be using this bit later on, I think. We're going to do the BPI inventory slot. Go into interfaces, get item details, pass the item details in, pass the hotbar num in. And then we're just going to check it is hotbar. So the index is for later on when we do weapon switching, if you're wondering. That's when most of this is used for. But right now we're just going to use it to get the item details. So back in the drop, we're going to do a get item details. Get item details like that. The reason we're doing an interface actually is because I've just realized it could be dragging it from the hotbar onto the hotbar or from the inventory to the hotbar. So if we just did a cast to inventory and then cast to hotbar, you can't really do that because you're casting to one or the other. But with this, you're basically casting to both. If that makes sense, because they both implement it. So if we're dragging hotbar to hotbar, we'll just grab the hotbar's item details. But if it's inventory to hotbar, then we'll grab the inventory's item details. That makes any sense to you at all. So now we're going to check if it's the hotbar. So if it's a hotbar slot pretty much. If it is, then we're just going to do a weapon switching thing, which we're not going to do just yet. However, if it isn't, then we're going to carry on with adding the inventory item to the hotbar. So we're first going to check if the S underscore item details of this hotbar slot, and we're going to break it. We're going to check if it's empty. So you can use the name. You can use any of these really. I'm just going to use the class for this one, because you can simply just click put an equals to and just leave it blank. So that's going to check if it's equal to nothing. So if it is equal to nothing, then we can continue adding it to the hotbar, because if it's full, we don't want to add it. I mean, you could switch it if you wanted to, but that's not what we're going to do here. So what we can do now is we can start by grabbing this inventory item. So since it's got past this false here, since it's not the hotbar, this is automatically going to obviously be an inventory item. So we're just going to do a set members in the item details. So if it's obviously empty, we're going to grab the slot number, hotbar slot, and we're going to put it to hotbar number. So when we add it to the hotbar, we're going to check, well, if the hotbar empty. Then what we'll do is, since each of the hotbar items has, obviously, it keeps track of which order it is in the hotbar. We're just going to set it to this current hotbar. So obviously we're dragging it onto this hotbar. So it's going to be in this hotbar. So we're going to have the index as this hotbar. Then we're going to simply set the item details. So the item details of this hotbar slot is now going to be this inventory slot with the added on hotbar number there. And if you're wondering, that is exactly what we're doing here pretty much. We're doing the exact same thing. So we're now going to get a reference to the third person character. So pass a third person character and grab a player character like this. We're then going to get the inventory, obviously, because we want to remove it from the inventory because we're going inventory to hotbar. So we're going to remove this item from the inventory. We'll do remove index. And the index we're going to remove is the index, like that. There we are. Because if you remember, when we add things to the inventory, we're keeping track of what their array index is. Because as I said, I think last video, if we're just using item details to remove it and we're just removing it by array element, sometimes he can get confused, and since we can have duplicate items, it might remove the wrong item because it will just check which one's first and then remove that one. Next thing we can do is we can grab the hotbar now because we just removed it from the inventory. So now we can actually add it to the hotbar. So we can do set array element. The array element will be this hotbar num because that's this hotbar. So if this is the second slot, the hotbar num will be 1 and we'll add it to the second slot in the third person character's hotbar array, which is the main hotbar array where everything gets its information from. So it's easy to update. Then the third person character, we're going to do the exact same that we did for when we did the inventory. So we're going to refresh the inventory. And then we can grab the main widget. We can grab the, what was it? I believe it was the hotbar. Yep, and then we can update the hotbar as well. Update hotbar like this. And I believe that is everything. So I hope you actually understood this. This part is rather complex to explain, and sometimes I don't even understand it. I just sort of was stringing things together and it ended up working. But it's essentially just removing things from arrays and then adding it to a different one, and then you just refresh it. That's it in simple terms. You're more than welcome to obviously try to understand the code yourself and just go through it. And I actually strongly encourage you to do that. But now we can move it to the inventory, from the inventory, back. Doesn't work. Okay. So I don't think it does. I don't think it works then. Right? 1 second. Let me just test it. This just picking up all the items. Yeah. So it doesn't add it to the hotbar. Now, why is that? And that is simply because, as you can see, we're actually setting the array element to empty. Whereas we want to set it to the S item details. Which, if you're wondering, you're probably wondering if the hotbar is already empty, why we set it to its own item details. And that is because, as you can see here, we're actually setting its own item details to the inventory item details plus the hotbar number. So now when we play, we should be able to drag something to the inventory and back to the hotbar. So yeah, we can now completely shuffle our items around like this. So obviously you don't have it working, so we can switch them around yet. It might look like it does because they're all the same weapon, but trust me, we do not have that working just yet. Because we can't, yeah, you see that? Yeah. But yeah, we'll work on that on the next video. I'm trying to keep these videos sort of short and just covering one thing at a time. But next video, we should hopefully be able to switch these around, so order our weapons. And we might start working on the equipping. There's not long to go, I don't think. We're pretty much nearly done. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. Subscribe if you did learn something actually. And like the video, it really helps to push the video out to more people. So more people discover it and more people can obviously learn. So yeah, just I really hope you enjoyed. Please comment if you want me to do anything differently, or if I struggle to explain something, just comment and I'll try to explain it to you as much as I can. Yeah, in the meantime, when I'm gone and there's no more videos out, I encourage you to just go through the code and try to understand it yourself. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in a bit. Goodbye.